Text. Yasyambasi shayanasya yoganidram vitanvitaha nabhirdambujadasau brahma vishwa srijampatihi.
A part of the Purusha lies down within the water of the universe. From the navel lake of his body sprouts a lotus stem, and from the lotus flower atop his stem, Brahma, the master of all engineers in the universe, becomes manifest.
Yasya vayavasamsthanai kalpito lokavistaraha tadai bhagavato rupam vishuddham sattvam.
It is believed that all the universal planetary systems are situated on the extensive body of the Purusha, but he has nothing to do with the created material ingredients. His body is eternally in spiritual existence, par excellence.
Pashyantyado rupam adabrachakshusha sahasrapadoru bhujananadbhutam sahasramudra shavanakshinaasikam sahasramaulyambara kundalolasat.
The devotees, with their perfect eyes, see the transcendental form of the Purusha, who has thousands of legs, thighs, arms, and faces, all extraordinary. In that body, there are thousands of heads, ears, eyes, and noses. They are decorated with thousands of helmets and glowing earrings and are adorned with garlands.
Etam nanavataranam nidanam bijamavyayam yasyam shamshena srijjante devatiryanaradayaha.
This form, the second manifestation of Purusha, is the source and indestructible seed of multifarious incarnations within the universe. From the particles and portions of this form, different living entities like demigods, men, and others are created.
Sayeva pratamam devaha kaumaram sargamashritah chachara dushcharam brahma brahmacharyam akanditam.
First of all, in the beginning of creation, there were the four unmarried sons of Brahma, the Kumaras, who, being situated in the vow of celibacy, underwent severe austerities for realization of the absolute truth.
Tiyam tu bhavayasya rasatalagatam mahim uddarishanyapadatta yajnesha saukaram vapuhu.
The supreme enjoyer of all sacrifices accepted the incarnation of a boar, the second incarnation, and for the welfare of the earth, he lifted the earth from the nether regions of the universe.
Tritiyam rishi sargam vai devashitvam upetya saha tantram sattvatam atyasta naishkarmyam karmanam yataha.
In the millennium of the Rishis, the personality of Godhead accepted the third empowered incarnation in the form of Devarshi Narad, who is a great sage among the demigods. He collected expositions of the Vedas which deal with devotional service and which inspire non-fruitive action.
Turye dharma kala sarge naranarayanam rishihi bhutvatmopashapmapetam akaro dushcharam tapaha.
In the fourth incarnation, the Lord became Nara and Narayan, the twin sons of the wife of King Dharma. Thus, he undertook severe and exemplary penances to control the senses.
Panchamaha kapilo nama siddesha kala viplutam प्रोवाच सत्रये साङ्ख्यं तत्त्वग्रामविनिर्णयम्.
The fifth incarnation, named Lord Kapila, is foremost among perfected beings. He gave an exposition of the creative elements and metaphysics to Asuri Brahmana. For in course of time, this knowledge has been lost.
षष्ठमत्रे अपत्यत्वं कृतप्राप्तो न सूयया अन्विक्षिक्षिम् अलर्काय प्रह्लादिद्येभ्य ऊचिवन्.
The sixth incarnation of the Purusha was the son of the sage Atri. He was born from the womb of Anusaya, who prayed for an incarnation. He spoke on the subject of transcendence of Alarka, Prahlad, and others, Yadu, Ayaya, etc.
तथा सप्तम आकृत्यं रुचेर्यज्ञोऽभ्यजायत स या मध्ये सुरगणैः अपात् स्वायम्भुवान्तरम्.
The seventh incarnation was Yajna, the son of Prajapati Ruchi and his wife Akuti. He controlled the period during the change of the Swayambhuva Manu and was assisted by demigods such as his son Yama.
अष्टमे मेरुदेव्यान्तु नाभिर्जातगुरुक्रमः दर्शयान् वर्तं धीराणां सर्वाश्रमनमस्कृतम्.
The eighth incarnation was King Rishabha, son of King Nabhi and his wife Merudevi. In this incarnation, the Lord showed the path of perfection, which is followed by those who have fully controlled their senses and who are honored by all orders of life.
ऋषिभिर्याचितो भेजे नवमं पार्थिवं वपुः दुग्धे माम् ओषधिर्विप्रास् तेनायं सवुषत्तमः.
O Brahmanas, in the ninth incarnation, the Lord prayed for by sages, accepted the body of a king, Prithu, who cultivated the land to yield various produce, and for that reason the earth was beautiful and attractive.
रूपं सजगृहे मस्यं चाक्षुषो दधि सम्प्लवे नाव्यरूप्य महिमय्याम् आपादौ वैवत्स्वतं मनुम्.
When there was a complete indentation after the period of the Chakshusha Manu, and the whole world was deep within water, the Lord accepted the form of fish and protected Vaivasvata Manu, keeping him up on a boat.
सुरासुराणां बुदाधिं मत्नता मन्दराचलं दद्रे कमटरूपेण पुष्ट एकादशे विभुः.
The 11th incarnation of the Lord took the form of a tortoise, whose shell served as a pivot for the Mandara Chala hill, which was being used as a churning rod by the theist and the atheist of the universe.
धन्वन्तरं द्वादशमं त्रयोदशमाम् एव च अपाययत्सुरान् अन्यान् मोहिन्यमोहयन् स्त्रिया.
In the 12th incarnation, the Lord appeared as Dhanvantari, and in the 13th, he allured the atheists by the charming beauty of a woman and gave nectar to the demigods to drink.
चतुर्दशां नारसिंहं बिभ्रदैतेन्द्रम् ऊर्जितं ददार करजैरुराव एरकां कथकृद्यथा.
In the 14th incarnation, the Lord appeared as Narsimha and bifurcated the strong body of the atheist Hiranyakashipu with his nails, just as a carpenter pierces cane.
पञ्चदशं वामनकं कृत्वा गात् अध्वरं बले पदत्रयं याचमानः प्रत्यादिष्टस्त्रिपिष्टपम्.
In the 15th incarnation, the Lord assumed the form of dwarf Brahman, Vaman, and visited the arena of sacrifice arranged by Maharaj Bali. Although at heart he was willing to regain the kingdom of the three planetary systems, he simply asked for a donation of 3 steps of land.
अवतारे षोडशमे पश्यन् ब्रह्मध्रुवो नृपान् त्रिसप्त कृत्वा कुपितो नक्षत्राम् अकरो महिम्.
In the 16th incarnation of the Godhead, the Lord, as Brihupati, annihilated the administrative class Kshatriyas 21 times, being angry with them because of their rebellion against the Brahmanas, the intelligent class.
तथा सप्तदशे जातः सत्यवत्यां पराशरात्
Prabhu, can you put it up?
चक्रे वेदतरो शाखा दृष्ट्वा पुंस्वल्पमेधसः.
Thereafter, in the 17th incarnation of Godhead, Sri Vyasadeva appeared in the womb of Satyavati through Parashar Muni, and he divided the one Veda into several branches and sub-branches, seeing that the people in general were less intelligent.
नरदेवत्वम् आपन्नः सुरकार्या च कीर्षया समुद्रनिग्रहादीनि चक्रे वीर्यान्यथा परम्.
In the 18th incarnation, the Lord appeared as King Ram in order to perform some pleasing work for the demigods. He exhibited superhuman powers by controlling the Indian Ocean and then killing the atheist king Ravan, who was on the other side of the sea.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Please forgive me for any mistakes. Dandavat pranams to everyone. Thank you very much.
So today we are going to discuss 1, 3, 12 from this chapter. Thank you everybody for attending and giving me the opportunity to read the translation and now speak something on this verse. So let's chant. Tatah saptam ahutyam रुचेर्यज्ञोऽभ्यजायत स्वयामाद्यैः सुरगणैर् अपास्त्वायम्भुवान्तरम् ततः सप्तम आहुत्यां रुचेर्यज्ञोऽभ्यजायत स्वयामाद्यैः सुरगणैर् अपास्त्वायम्भुवान्तरम् ततः सप्तम आहुत्यां रुचेर्यज्ञोऽभ्यजायत स्वयामाद्यैः सुरगणैर् Apat Swayambhuvantaram. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The 7th incarnation was Yajna, the son of Prajapati Ruchi and his wife Akuti. He controlled the period during the change of the Swayambhu Manu and was assisted by demigods such as his son Yama. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The administrative posts occupied by the demigods for maintaining the regulations of the material world are offered to the highly elevated pious living beings. When there is a scarcity of such pious living beings, the Lord incarnates himself as Brahma, Prajapati, Indra, etc., and takes up the charge. During the period of Swayambhuva Manu, the present period is of Vaivasvata Manu. There was no suitable living being who could occupy the post of Indra, the king of the Indraloka, heaven, planet. The Lord himself at that time became Indra, assisted by his own sons like Yama and other demigods. Lord Yajna ruled the administration of the universal affairs. Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnantimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshuromilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tatati Swakadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru, Shri Yutapadakamlam, Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha, Shri Rupam Sagrajatam, Sahagana Raghunathantam, Tum Sajivam. Sa Advaitam, Sa Avadhutam, Parijana Sahitam, Krishna Chaitanya Devam, Shri Radha Krishna Padan, Sahagana Lalita, Shri Shakhantam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu, Dina Bandhu Jagatpate, Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Taptakanchana Gaurangi, Radhe Vrindavaneshwari, Rishabhanusute Devi, Pranamami Haripriya. Panchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhya evacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Aradhya Bhagwan Brajesha Tanaya Stadhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachita Upasana Vrajavadhu Vargenya Kalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramana Amalam Prema Pumartho Mahan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhor Matamidam Tatradaraha Naparaha Yampra Vrajeta Manupe Mupeta Kuttam Dvaipayano Virahaka Aju Ava Putreti Tanmayataya Tarvo Vinendus Tam Sarva Rupa Bhutardayam. So, yeah, let's read the verse and the translation again, and then we will start our discussion. Tataha saptama akutyam rucheri yatnyodhyajayata sayamadhehi suraganer apatstvaya bhuvantaram. The seventh incarnation was Yajna, the son of Prajapati Ruchi and his wife Akuti. He controlled the period during the change of the Swayambhu Manu and was assisted by demigods such as his son Yama. So, from the purport and from this verse, what we can first thing we immediately realize and understand is Lord sets his rules for the material world. When he creates it, he sets his rules. And he follows the rules in such a way by taking the responsibility. So there was nobody he found suitable for the administration of the affairs of this material world. And he himself took the ownership. From every Leela, every pastime of the Lord, there is always something to learn, to take away for us. And here, the important point we should consider is the administrative responsibilities are given to highly elevated, pious living beings. So the person should be qualified enough. And that is very straightforward for us to understand in our we can see in our corporate life or in any of our administration, the person goes through so many rigorous interviews and tests and so many things. Here, Lord need not have to do that. And he just checks who is that because he's there in our heart. So he gives the responsibility to highly elevated personalities. So in our current Manu's time, who is Indra right now? What is his name? Purandar, right? In the next Manvantar, the Indra is going to be Bali Maharaj. So like that, they are the highly elevated, powerful personalities. As we know, Bali Maharaj is one of the Mahajans. How wonderful that Manvantar is going to be. Right? Mahajan is the ruler of the heavenly planets of this world, material world. But in this particular Manvantar, Lord did not find anybody eligible or suitable persons, and he took the ownership, he took the responsibility of administration because there is a scarcity of pious living beings. That means what we can learn from this is we need to take the responsibility when in our spiritual and in material life as well, obviously, that for the prescribed duty, as Lord explains in Bhagavad Gita, if somebody is an administrator, if our varana, if our psychophysical nature is of any of the four types, then we need to follow the same example. We need to take the responsibility of certain administrations and ownership. So that is one lesson immediately we can learn. This particular verse is very important as yajna means sacrifice, and we will discuss that in a few minutes. So during the period of Swayambhuva Manu, if we see his wife was Shatarupa, and they had 5 children. One was King Priyavrat, second is Uttanapad, and then 3 daughters, Akuti, Devahuti, and Prasuti. Out of that, the Akuti is the one currently we are going to discuss today. But as we know, Devahuti is the mother of Lord Kapiladev and Kardama Muni. I think Manu Prabhu has given a fairly detailed. He has discussed it in a fairly elaborate manner. And before that, I think other incarnations like King Dambhodbhava, as is discussed by, I think, Madhukumari Mataji. So we will focus on this particular incarnation of Yajna. So who are those highly elevated personalities who can take the responsibility? They're vibhutis of the Lord. They're the opulences of the Lord. And who are those? Rishis, Manus, demigods, and descendants of Manu and Prajapatis. They're all in mode of goodness. And they're basically the plenary portions or the portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. So in context with this particular verse, few things we can focus on is Lord is the proprietor. So he declares that in Bhagavad Gita, Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyate sa characharam. Chara means moving, achara means non-moving, means trees are achara, and all the right from insects to humans and mammals, everybody is a chara. We are moving. So Maya Adhyakshena. Adhyakshena means he is the president, he is the Lord, under his direction everything is happening. Prakriti is the material nature. Suyate sa characharam. Under his guidance, everything is happening. Hetum apnena kaunteya jagadvi parivartate. So he is the one who, according to his directions, this material world is moving. If we see in that perspective, Lord, let's take the example of how Lord deals with the situations in terms of the empowering the personalities and how he gives the directions. So one story we can think of is story of Ashwatthama. At the end, as we all must have, you must have gone through several times, when he killed the 5 sons of Pandavas when they were sleeping, and then he was captured by Arjuna. And that time, Draupadi and Yudhishthir Maharaj said that, no, don't kill him, because his mother, Krupi, will be in a deep state of distress and sorrow. And I know what that sorrow is, what that sadness is, so don't kill him. But Bhima was saying, no, he's a criminal, he has to be killed. And that time, as Madhukumari Mataji has explained, Naranarayan Rishi is Arjuna and Krishna. And then Lord was telling Arjuna that he has to be killed, but at the same time, you have to honor the desire of Yudhishthir Maharaj and Draupadi, because logically they are also right. And that time what happened? Lord gave the instruction. You have to kill, but not to kill. Then what to do? So he removed his status of being a Brahman, Ashwatthama's status of being Brahman. How? By cutting his hair. The Brahman is supposed to follow certain rules and regulations. And by cutting the hair and the jewel he had on his head, Ashwatthama lost that status of being Brahman. So how Lord empowers the personalities, the elevated personalities, how he directs the personalities to do certain things. And this is one of the examples. Arjun, of course, we can discuss something about Arjun, why he gets all the special benedictions, all his qualifications. Example of Arjun, he is also called Dhananjaya. Logically, we won't be able to relate few things in the current Kali Yuga material logic. We won't be. But how Arjun gained the title of Dhananjaya? There was one Brahman who had a lot of wealth. He was given a lot of paraphernalia for the worship, which was made of gold, and that was huge. But Brahmins are not very materially or physically they are not very strong. So, what is the job of Brahman? Who is Brahman? Let's come to that point first, and then we will understand why Brahmins are not supposed to be physically strong. So Brahman is supposed to do 6 things: yajan, yajan, pathan, pathan, pratigraha, and dan. So yajan means he is supposed to he's supposed to follow the perfect example of how to perform the sacrifices. Yajan, that means if somebody wants to perform the sacrifice, but if they are not eligible or qualified enough, they can request the Brahmana and say, can you please perform the sacrifice for me? That is yajan. Yajan. Pathan means he's supposed to be the Vedic scholar. So for example, when anybody receives the second initiation in our sampradaya, so that means they are considered as eligible by their spiritual master to follow the Brahminical principles. So that means that person can wear a sacred thread and then start performing certain rituals. Then they are eligible to learn the Vedic standards and Vedic principles. So that means they are Dvija, twice born. Once that person is well versed, qualified, he can defend the scriptures properly. That means he is a very eloquent scholar. That person is termed as Vipra. That's the second stage. And when the person has a realized knowledge, then that person has Brahmajna. That is the spiritual knowledge which is realized. That is Vidya. And that person is called Brahman. Brahma janati iti Brahmanyam. That is the Sanskrit way of defining the Brahman. The person who understands Brahma. Brahmajna means spiritual knowledge. So that is Brahman. Now, that Brahman, he was not interested. So he left that all paraphernalia somewhere, and then no one was touching that. No one was interested to take that gold. And that time Yudhishthira Maharaj told Arjun that there is a lot of carts and carts full of gold, and can you get that? And Arjun went and he got that gold and brought it for the Rajasuya Yajna. And that's how he got the name Dhananjaya. So elevated personalities, how those are, means, and how they get the titles. That Arjun was not attached to that gold. Arjun just took it took the instruction from his elder brother. He went there, got it, and he conquered the gold. Conquering the gold means not possessing the gold. The desire to accumulate the gold, that he conquered that desire. And that's why he is called Dhananjay. So that is the elevated personality. And that's what Prabhupada is referring to about the highly elevated personalities here in this particular context. So those are the people who are eligible to be the administrators. Let's step back and think about how this situation was. Means during that time, a kingdom was owned by the presiding deity of that kingdom. Okay, so for example, Indraprastha, the presiding deity was Narayan, and the ownership of that Indraprastha was with Narayan. Who are the who worship Narayan at that? Who were worshipping the deity of Narayan? All the Brahmanas. So they were the one who were giving the counseling, who were giving the advice to the Kshatriyas, who are the administrators, who are the rulers. So we can see here, how is that Brahman is not supposed to, the 6 things we just discussed, Pathan, he is supposed to be the scholar. Pathan means he is supposed to teach as well. And then last thing, because he should not be attached to any material possessions, that person is supposed to beg the alms. Okay, so prati agraha, across somebody, agraha means to give. He will do the yachna. Give me something. How much he can get for that day, whatever is required, that much only Brahman is supposed to ask for. So that, for example, if Brahman has and himself, so 4 people in the family, how much they need every day, their food and whatever their requirements are, that much only he's supposed to beg. If he gets extra, he's supposed to give it to someone else. He's supposed to donate. So prati agraha, so he will beg alms. And dan, so Brahman is supposed to give a dan of whatever that extra he gets for the day. So we can see, once Giriraj, His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj asked Prabhupada, what is humility? And we can see the perfect relationship here. And Prabhupada's answer was, every moment of our life when we are dependent on Krishna, that means we have humility. So Brahman is supposed to have that humility. How powerful those Brahmins must be. Yajan, Pathan, Pratigra, Dhan. 6 things Brahman is following day and night perfectly. And that personality is advising the Kshatriyas that you are supposed to rule the kingdom like this. And as we can see in Mahabharata, who was the Brahman who was training all the great warriors? Dronacharya. So Brahman can train anybody, all the 3 other Varnas, because they are very powerful personalities. They are excellent in all the arts and all the Vedic literature, all the Upavedas like Gandharva Ved, Sthapatya Ved, Sankhya Ved, and all other Upavedas. Gandharva Ved is knowledge of singing. Sthapatya Ved is a knowledge of architecture. And there are so many other Vedas. Means Ayurveda, as we know, which is the Veda related to our health. Ayur means health. So that is the personality. And those are all the elevated personalities who are in a mode of goodness. So obviously, the administrators are also high class. And Brahman are giving the advice to the administrators. And administrators will collect the taxes. From whom? From Vaishyas, from the 3rd Varna. And then they are supposed to give the orders or the work to Shudra. And that's how the society will function. But whole kingdom is owned by whom? The presiding deity of that kingdom. And we can see here again, if Lord does not find anybody suitable to perform these duties, then he takes the charge and he starts guiding, directing the other entities in the material world. And obviously, being Indra, and all the, as we know, the Govardhan Leela pastimes, Indra is the in charge of. He's not only the administrator, but he is the in charge of rain, the clouds. And without rain, nothing will function. So very, very important, very powerful responsibility Indradev has. And that's what Prabhupada is giving us here, all the background behind it. So now we will come to the point of the importance of yajna. Akuti, the wife of Yajnadev, her name, the translation of her name, the meaning of her name, she who has attained perfection. That means Akuti. Okay, so there is nothing impure in her. She has attained perfection. And obviously, when Lord appears, he does not appear like any material child. He appears in a very different manner, and that's the reason the son of Prajapati Ruchi and his wife was Yajnadev, and their daughter, the Yajnadev was adopted by Swayambhu Manu, because when during their marriage, Prajapati Ruchi and Akuti, there was a condition put by Swayambhu Manu that your son will be adopted by me. That is called Putraka Dharma. And if you don't have a child, then you can put condition, and then to your brother or to others, and you can request for adoption. But in this case, Swayambhu Manu already had daughter, son and daughter, and still for some special arrangement, because Swayambhu Manu is a realized personality, so he put the condition to Akuti that and Prajapati Ruchi that your son will be adopted by me. And Yajnadev was given to Swayambhu Manu. And their daughter was called Dakshina. And who is Dakshina? She is none other than the expansion of the Lakshmi Devi. Eventually, Dakshina and Yajnadev, they were married. In our logical material calculations, we can think they are brother and sister, but it is very, very early age, and when there is a Supreme Lord, there is no genetics involved, there is no material body involved. So our logic is also doesn't work there, because his Leela are Divya. Divya means beyond logic. And that's what happened here. This Yajnadev, he had his son Yama. That is, as far as my understanding goes, he is not Yamraj. Yamraj is different, and his name was Yama, not Yama. And other demigods, all other 9 sons, they were assisted in the ruling, the administration of the material world by to Yajnadev. Now, interesting bit is there is a fascinating story. When Swayambhu Manu and Shatarupa, when they retired from all the worldly affairs, they went to the forest, and he was doing his prayers. He was meditating, and at that time there were a lot of atheistic, very Rakshasas. They came to know that there is somebody whom they can devour. And they went there. And before that, Swayambhu Manu was doing his prayers, and those were very intense prayers. And Swayambhu Manu's prayers were, his prayers were so powerful that he could control the air, the wind. And it is similar to how the prayers of Dhruva Maharaj were. And that time we know that Lord touched the conch shell to Dhruva Maharaj's head, and then that famous prayer of Yuntah Pravishya Mamavacham Imam Prasuttam that started. When sometime later we will discuss that prayer, or someone else will discuss. So, and that time the Lord appeared from Swayambhu Manu's heart, and with his Sudarshan Chakra, he just killed all the demons, all the Rakshasas. And that's how Swayambhu Manu was protected. Who was that Lord? That's Yajnadev. Because that is the sacrifice. Lord Yajna was there in his heart. So in our hearts as well, Yajnadev is there, the Paramatma feature. So Bhagavan and Paramatma are the same. How Swayambhu Manu, the Yajnadev appeared from his heart, the Supreme Lord Vishnu, because of his prayers, and then he killed. Because unless and until we have that firm faith that yes, Lord is the supreme protector and no one else, and that time he will appear either externally or internally. As we in 13th chapter, Lord says that Bahirantascha Bhutanam Charam Charam Sukshmatvat Tadavidneyam Durastham Chantike Chatam. I am there inside and outside. Bahir Antascha Bhutanam, in all living entities, inside and outside, I am there. Charam Achara Evacha, Charam Charam Evacha. So moving and non-moving, all the living entities, I am there. Sukshmatvat Tadavidneyam, minutest of minute and the macro and the biggest of the biggest, Tadavidneyam, Durastham Chantike Chatat. I am somewhere very far and very, very close as well. So Lord can appear in any way, and he can protect, and he can take the charge of the situation. So that's what Yajnadev is. Let's quickly discuss, and then we will conclude and go for if there are any questions or comments. So in Bhagavad Gita 3.9, Lord discusses about Yajna, and then there are a few verses later on. Yajnarthat karmanonyatra lokoyam karmabandhanaha tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sanga samachara. The translation is work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction. And in that way, you will always remain free from bondage. So we can imagine here, when Lord Yajnadev has taken the charge of the situation, how he will direct the living entities in the material world, in the Swayambhu Manu. So as per the time, place, and circumstances, Lord guides, directs the living entities so that they can come back to us. And that is a confirmation in the famous verse of Bhagavad Gita 10.9. In a 10th chapter, Dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayantite. I will give that intelligence so that people, the living entities, can come back to me. And if we see the next verse, Sahayajnaha prajaha srishtva purovacha prajapatihi anena prasavishadvam eshavo dvishta kamadhuk. Very important verse. In the beginning of the creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them, saying, "Be thou happy by this yajna," the sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. Very, very powerful, very important verse. And as we know, in 9th chapter, Lord says, what yajna is suitable for this age Satatam kirtayantu mam yatantascha dridavritah. Namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. Satatam kirtayantu mam means chanting of the holy name of the Lord. And that is the most important yajna for this age of quarrel and hypocrisy. And that's what we are supposed to follow. We know how to follow and what to follow as per the Vaidhi Bhakti, which is given to us very mercifully by our Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. So that's the verse. There are a few other verses related to Yajnadev or of the sacrifices. Devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayantah shreyah parama vapsatha. And there are more. I think you can read that. I'm sure you all must be knowing it. So that's what about Yajnadev I wanted to say a few words. Thank you very much. It's already 8:40. I think my time is already up. So if there are any questions, then yeah, please let me know, or any comments or any additions. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanava Pranam, Guru Prabhupada. Thank you for the class. It was really enlightening. Thank you. Your knowledge and depth is quite extraordinary. So thank you for that.
That's your kind.
I have a question, Prabhuji. With respect to demigods and the positions of those, we read and we learn that they are generally exalted exalted jivas who take that position. And when there is no exalted jiva to take such a position, Lord takes that position himself. Generally speaking, Brahma, but obviously Indra as well.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that the next position of Indra is Bali Maharaj. Now, Bali Maharaj is a Mahajan.
Yes.
So he's an eternal associate of Krishna. Yes. And we learned that all positions in demigods, apart from where they're taken up by the Lord himself, they are fallible and therefore have to come down back to having sort of burnt their positive mode of goodness karma, they eventually fall again. Yeah. Now, clearly, in the case of Bali Maharaj, if it's an eternal associate, he presumably doesn't fall again because he's an eternal associate. So, in that instance, why does the Lord not himself take that position as opposed to giving that position to a Mahajan?
Very nice. Thank you for this very nice question. Now, as we can see in all the leelas of the Lord, at time, for example, the best example is Bhishmadev's prayers. Yudhishthir Maharaj was not pacified by the Lord, but he was pacified by the words of Bhishmadev. Does it mean that Lord does not have capacity? Of course he has. He is the Supreme Lord. But he wants to glorify his devotees. Bali Maharaj is a phenomenally magnanimous personality. He was the king of the universe. And Vaman Dev has given him the promise that I will be your doorkeeper. So when Bali Maharaj is going to be the Indradev, obviously Vaman Dev will be there with him all the time. And to glorify his devotees, Lord gives them certain ownership, certain responsibilities. And that is the beauty of Lord's mercy as well as his Leela. And that's what the explanation I can think of. Why is he giving, why Bali Maharaj will be the next Indra? Because he is a great devotee. And obviously, as we can see in case of Rupa Goswami and all other great personalities, they were performing their duties, or they were part of Mahaprabhu's Leela, but at the same time, Rupa Goswami is Rupa Manjari in the spiritual world as well. So it's just an expansion. And that is something inconceivable we can think of, means in terms of how the Leelas of the Lord take place. Does it give any satisfactory answer, or you have some other question, Prabhuji.
No, that's good, Prabhuji. I'm just intrigued in terms of how, because clearly Mahajans are eternal associates.
Yes, definitely.
Eternal associates and glorification of eternal associates is by virtue of their eternal association with Krishna. Why you would have to post him into essentially a fallen position of a demigod from being an eternal associate is a bit bewildering. Because as being an eternal associate in Vaikuntha, why would he come into the material? Why would he be a glorification by giving him a material position in the material world as Indra?
Agree. But at the same time, we can think about Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu. Was that they were actually fallen or they committed offense? No. In the third canto, we can read that Lord confirms to Ashwini Kumar that it was my idea. He is the puppeteer, as Kunti Maharani says that Maya Javanika Chinnam Agnya Adhokshajam Abhyayam Na Lakshase Moodhadrusha Nato Natya Dharodata. Such a beautiful verse it is. What she says is, in this Maya, in this material world, Javanika Channam, and somewhere at the background, Agnya Adhokshajam Abhyayam, just by your glance, everything is moving, everything is Avyaya, means it is moving as per your directions. Na Lakshase Moodhadrusha. The person who is a Moodha, who is a fool, he does not understand that there is somebody who is the puppeteer. He is the supreme transcendental puppeteer. Na Lakshase Moodhadrusha. He does not understand. He cannot see that with his Shastra Chakshu or with his eyes of intelligence. Nato Natya Dharoyatha. You are the organizer of this play. You are the player in this play. You are the director, you are producer, you are everybody. And when Lord has that plan, then obviously he will bring his devotees in his plan as well. And that's what we can think about, whether that is Bali Maharaj or as a devotee or somebody who is satisfying the Lord in the mood of chivalry or his being his enemy. So his Lord's enemy has to be that powerful. Otherwise, there is no point in being enemy. And that's what the explanation Acharyas give, especially Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and the glorification of how Narad Muni, he glorifies the demons as well. That is there in 7th canto, 1st chapter, and very, very fascinating to read. Especially the, I think, 21st verse onwards. You will like that.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions or comments, or we can?
Prabhuji?
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to ask a question about the duties of the Brahmanas. As you mentioned, their duty was patan, collecting alms.
Yeah.
My question is, and they can teach to everyone the teachings and the warfares. So why Eklavya and Karna was mistreated by their spiritual master, which were Brahmana?
Okay, good. Interesting question. Karna and Eklavya, they have a background, as Karna is that Dambodbhava. He's a demon, and because of his, as Lord says, if you have a certain karmic account, that you have to pay. Unless and until you nullify that account, you won't be able to progress in your spiritual life. And in case of Eklavya and Karna, there was karmic account, as we can see in case of Dambodbhava and Surya Dev, and that's the story behind it. Obviously, he's part of the law. He's part of the Leela of the Lord, and as Sripad Madhvacharya says, that anybody who is in the Leela, whether playing the part as the associate, as a Sayuja, of the Lord or as an opponent of the Lord, still they are glorified. So as we can see, Bhishmadev was playing the role of a opposer, but at the same time, he's a pure devotee. He's glorified like anything. His prayers, like we can keep chanting his prayer all the time. Such a amazing prayers. So of course, Eklavya and Karna, they have achieved so much that their account was cleared. They were glorified in their fight, and then obviously because they are the associates of the Lord from the spiritual world, but they were part of different leelas of the Lord. So that is something divyatvam. That is something beyond our logic. As in this verse as well, we can see that Dakshina and Lord Yajna, they were married, born from the same parents. How can we think of that? How can we imagine that? That's what the that's the craftsmanship of the Lord, we can think.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Yeah, because logically, we can see Karna's position. He had his karmic account, but whether it is really a karma, no. Duryodhan as well. He had that behavior of envy and everything else, but he was killed. And in Bhagavatam, Lord says, Shukdev Goswami confirms that he was not happy. Lord was not happy when he was killed. How to understand this? Means with our logic, obviously we will be happy. Oh, Duryodhana got killed, fantastic. But he was not happy because he has that compassion. He has that supreme compassion, anukampa, which is beyond our logical understanding.
Okay, Prabhu, I just want to say that at that time they should, like, they are samdarshi as well. Brahman is a samdarshi. They didn't see that. So we consider Karna and Eklavya as a part of Krishna's Leela, that they were not being given knowledge from their spiritual master.
He was actually, Karna was taught by Dronacharya, but because of his envious nature and because of certain misdeeds he did, he was condemned by Dronacharya. In case of Ekalavya, he did not follow certain rules and regulations of the society. And that, if we really want to get into the logical understanding of why that happened, he did not follow the rules of the society. If you're supposed to be in a Gurukul, you can't just go straight and say to the Guru that, okay, accept me as your disciple. You have to go through the tests since your childhood. So he did not follow that. And that's the logical explanation we can give. But as I said, everywhere the logic will fall short when we think of the Leela of the Lord. Obviously, logically, you will find proper explanation of this, why Karna and Eklavya were not accepted as 100% disciples, because he had that envy. And Karna we can see that throughout his life, he has played really, really filthy games because of his envy and his vengeance and so many things.
Yeah,
So that's
the reason actually.
Yeah. So logically, yes, they did not follow the rules. That's the plain and simple answer. For our textbooks, or somebody is taking the material exam, then you can write that. But material logic never works in terms of the Lord's Leela. That's the prime thing we need to keep in mind. Because why, when Draupadi was being insulted, why Bhishmadev did not interfere? He, being a Kshatriya, as a Kshatra Dharma, he's supposed to protect, and that's what his vow was, that he's supposed to protect the subjects of Hastinapur. And Draupadi was, and still he did not. So is that logical? No. What's the answer to that? So that's the point. Means everywhere, if we try to apply the material logic, we will get more and more bewildered. And there are innumerable contradictions in the scriptures, innumerable contradictions. And our Sripad Jiva Goswami, he openly declares in Priti Sandarbha and even in other scriptures, in other his writings, Tattva Sandarbha and all that. Of course, we have contradictions in our scriptures, but those contradictions is the beauty of the Lord's Leela, because that will intrigue you to study more, to attract you towards the Lord. Because as per your mood, you will keep asking questions. You will keep trying to know more and more about the Lord, and that's the beauty of the contradictions we have. Because fault finder will always find contradictions. I don't agree with this. I don't agree with that. But the devotee will relish the contradictions to find more and more the glories of the Lord. So that's the bottom line behind it.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Beautiful explain. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Great. So if there is no other question or comment, then yes, Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, Karna's guru was Parshuram, wasn't it?
Yes, later on, because he was rejected by Dronacharya, then he went to Parshuram, and we know the story. There was a beetle, and Parshuram was sleeping on Karna's lap.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you know the story. I don't need to repeat that. That's when he received the grace.
Sharp, isn't it? That whatever you learn, you will forget when you really need it.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu.
No problem.
Much about Eklavya, because I know Eklavya, Dronacharya, he rejected him. So he just, secretly he made his murti, and then he was taking from him. So that's all, isn't it? But then once he loses his thumb, he has not managed to fight or anything.
Yes, but as I was just explaining to Mataji that unless and until you have permission from your guru, you're not supposed to follow the rules of that Gurukul. And Eklavya did not follow the rules of the Gurukul. He did not approach the guru in a right manner. And that's why he had to pay the price. But of course, he's a devotee and he's glorified, and he's a great personality, though he's from that Bhilla caste.
Yeah. Low.
So, Krishna Chaitanya Swami, the disciple of Loknath Maharaj, his earlier name was Eklavya Prabhu. So much of such a glorious personality. Yeah. I don't think anyone can give name Karna in our spiritual life.
He was very, very intelligent, the Eklavya, because without even the Guru's Siksha, by this Murti of Guru, he learned all the art. So
yes, and that's the Vigraha of a Guru, which is so powerful. That's there is always something to learn for us from the Leela of the Lord, that we should not take Vigraha very cheaply, as our scriptures say. So just because of the Vigraha of that Guru, he could gain all the Vidya, all the knowledge. The Vigraha is so powerful. And Vigraha means the deity.
Yeah.
So, very important lesson for us to learn.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you, Maria.
Prabhuji. It's an important point actually that you've made, and it's worth emphasizing again. There are many points within the Bhagavatam that there are so-called apparent contradictions. Of course, there is no contradiction, but it is almost designed to put off those who are not sincere.
Yeah.
And for those who are sincere, for them to investigate further and find out, because there is everything. There is a perfect answer to every question and every contradiction. It's just that our understanding and our material conditioning doesn't allow us to see beyond and it is so perfectly designed to put off those who are not sincere. At that point, they will leave. In Canto 5 is a good example of that.
Yeah. We are beyond time, right? Or we can discuss something, or how is I don't know. I'm giving this. I'm doing this discussion for the first time in this group, so I don't know how it is. Otherwise, yesterday was an amazing, great day. Shripad Shankaracharya, it was his appearance day, and amazing. There's such a great personality. He was 8 years old. He was sannyasi, and he was swimming the currents of the rivers, and he went to Narmada, and that time he found a cave, and someone asked him, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm." What's your name? It was asked by the personality inside, who is Lord himself. And that time the answer he gave is, I am not this mind, I am not this body, I am not this material intelligence. I am just that auspicious Brahma, Shivoham, Shivoham. And he just immediately chanted the verses about glorifying the Brahmajnana. Such a powerful personality. So as you said, Prabhuji, this whole concept of contradictions itself is so relishing in our scriptures. It's wonderful. Anyway, so I think time is up, and then maybe sometime we will discuss again some of the other verses and the Leelas of the Lord. So thank you very much, everybody, for your attendance and your blessings. Hopefully we'll meet again sometime. So that's all for now. Jyoti Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Really wonderful class. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, can we listen to your lectures, that you have recorded?
My lectures, I think, I don't know. In manner, I gave few classes, but I don't know whether those are the morning Bhagavatam classes. May find one or two. I haven't seen that.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. It's a wonderful class. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Prabhuji. Thank
Hare
you very
Krishna, thank you.
much. Hare Krishna.